There we
There.
go.
Welcome to Yoga Biz Studio, a weekly broadcast of 10 to 30 minutes in length, hosted by me, Keeley Mitchell, the principal at Z Living, and my colleague,
Carla Wilson, owner of Wilson Media Services.
in which we'll share business, legal, marketing insights for yoga studio owners and independent yoga teachers. On today's episode, we'll be talking about the importance of treating yourself like a business. Even if you're an independent yoga teacher, treating yourself like a business is so important for your success.
Exactly, Keeley. Before we dive into the meat of our episode today, I just want to bring your attention to our website. We recently visited, or I should say that Keeley recently visited one of our studios in Chester County called the Light Within Yoga Studio in West Grove. So if you navigate over to our website at yogabizstudio.com, you can see the Keeley's interview with Allison Donnelly, the owner, and we would love for you to check that out. And don't forget, if you are a yoga studio owner in the Metro Philadelphia area, we would love to come and take a tour of your studio too. You can simply email us at yogabizstudio@gmail.com or reach out to us on social networks. We would love to hear from you. So yes, back to today's episode. Are you a business if you're just a yoga teacher? And I say the word just like in air quotes. It's really important for business owners to think about themselves as a business. I remember being called to this early on in my business. I've been in business, I just celebrated my 11th anniversary, but early on in my business, I was so happy that I had a business and I had control over my schedule, but what was happening was I really loved to volunteer at my son's school. So I would do a couple of hours of my business work in the morning, and then I would end up at the school in the afternoons. So I was literally spending 10 to 15 hours a week at my son's school volunteering, which I loved, but can you imagine taking 10 to 15 hours out of your schedule if you're trying to build a business? So at that point, one of my volunteer buddies at the school, who just because of her own situation was unable to work, she basically called me to the carpet and said, do you have a business or do you have a hobby? Like, really, what are you doing? And it caught me really off guard because, it was really ballsy of her to say that to me, especially since I was getting all this work done for the school. But she was the one that said, look, if you're running a business, you need to run it like a business, and you really are not running it like a business at the moment, are you? So it was really a wake-up call for me, I think, to take a step back and say, yeah, I think she's right. I really need to be spending this time that I am spending volunteering in my son's school. I really need to turn around and invest that in my business so I can really make it grow. And I needed to make sure that I was focusing on growing my business before I spent any more time volunteering.
Carla, you bring up such a great example. I was the same way. When I first started out, I was giving away so much of my time and not giving my business its full due. In the beginning, I was treating my business like a hobby, and I had to switch gears. All the advice I was giving my clients, I wasn't taking for myself. The hobby versus business discussion is so important to have because the law actually doesn't distinguish whether your business is a hobby or if it's a full-time gig for you. There is often an assumption from yogis that my services are for the studio owners or for those who strive to have their own yoga studio someday. However, that's not the case. My services are for anyone who has a yoga business, and that is pretty much anyone who is teaching or providing yoga services. There are so many instances where the law does not discern between the studio owner and the yoga instructor, or between the yoga instructor who teaches part-time versus the instructor who teaches full-time. That is why I'm so excited that Carla and I are covering this topic. It's just so important for people to truly understand the difference.
Right, exactly, Keeley. It's that whole part-time versus full-time, hobby versus business. It's so true. So what legal concerns can you cover for us for someone who thinks they're just a yoga teacher and really doesn't need to treat themselves like a business. Can you cover some of those for us?
Definitely. A common thing I often hear from teachers is that they are insured under the studio's insurance policy. This often just makes me cringe a little. And this makes me cringe because if there's ever a lawsuit and it's determined that the studio and the yoga instructor have a conflict of interest, or are not on the same page, the insurance carrier will cover the studio and not the yoga instructor. So in that instance, as a yoga instructor, you would have no insurance coverage. You would basically be coming out of pocket to personally defend yourself and pay the financial costs to do so. So that's kind of scary if you ever end up in that situation. This situation ties into another legal issue. If the yoga instructor has not created a legal entity for their yoga business, in other words, they haven't registered to be a corporation or a limited liability company, also known as an LLC, then they will be personally responsible for satisfying any damages that the court might determine. In order to satisfy damages, you can be instructed to sell your home, car, and other assets. And for those of you who say you only teach part-time and you feel you have nothing to worry about, that paycheck that comes from your full-time job can be garnished to pay those damages. The court can order your paycheck to be garnished to pay the damages that the court determines that you owe. So I'll say this again. Your paycheck can be garnished. So even if you teach part-time and you have another full-time job, you're putting that full-time job in jeopardy by not registering yourself as a corporation or an LLC and not having your own insurance coverage. The last legal issue I want yogis to be aware of concerns waiver of liabilities. Depending on how a studio's general waiver of liability may be drafted, yoga instructors may not be protected. If this is the case, you may want to think about having your own students sign your own waiver of liability that protects you. Many of you may be thinking that that might be overkill for your students, but having a simple sign-in sheet with the waiver of liability language at the top may address that issue, and the students won't feel as though it's overkill. If you are worried whether you are covered under the studio's waiver, you may want to discuss the issue with the studio owner. It is important to make sure you're covered to the best of your ability. The lesson to remember is the law does not discern between part-time and full-time or between instructor and studio. The law is only concerned with who is liable and holding that party accountable. So if you're teaching a yoga class and the students are in your class, think of yourself, you're liable, and don't just think that because you're in a studio, you have nothing to worry about.
Right, right. Keeley, again, you know, I used to, when you and I first started doing the show, we'd cut away to me after you were talking, and I'd do this. Oh my God! Oh my gosh! But over time, I've learned that, you know, this is really just an educational thing. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. So we're trying to give you some education, so you are prepared and you know what to do. So you are running, you're running a really thriving business. So not only, you know, from these legal, the insurance issue side of things. The law saying that doesn't really discern between part-time versus full-time. This is really true from a marketing standpoint as well. Even if you're teaching part-time at just one studio, you should still be marketing yourself as a teacher. If you rely on the studio to be doing all the marketing for you, you are really, and what happens if you have a falling out with that studio instructor? So then that class is gone, and then you really haven't built up, you really have to start at square one again in building up a following and getting another class. So what you need to do is, even if it's on a casual basis, you remind people, hey, I'm teaching the 6 p.m. class tonight at this studio. Hope you'll join me there. And putting your business out there, instead of relying solely on the studio to be doing the marketing, you at least are taking steps in for your business, and not relying on anyone else to do that for you. So you're proud to be the teacher. So of course, you know, it's good for the studio for you to be saying that as well. I mean, you may want to say to the studio owner, is it okay with you if I kind of put out there that I'm teaching the 6 p.m. class? And, you know, I can't imagine a studio owner that's going to say, no, I'd really prefer that you not, because it's just going to get more yogis on their mats in the studio. So really take that step for yourself and make sure that you're still marketing, even if you are just a teacher teaching one class at one studio. You know, really start to take responsibility for your business and, you know, handle some of your own marketing and make sure that, you know, you're letting everybody know, using word of mouth to make sure people know that you are a yoga instructor, so you can start building that business. The other marketing concern I wanted to mention is consider separating your your personal and your business, your teaching business, your yoga teaching business, that is, on social media. So, you know, as you know, on the flip side of me saying, oh, you should be putting out there that you're teaching the 6 p.m. class at the studio, you know, you also don't want to like bombard your timeline with all of these posts. So it might make sense for you to start your own business page, for instance, on Facebook. So as you know, you need to have a personal profile before you can start a business page, but then you can start pushing out on that business page where you're teaching. And then that way, you're not overloading your personal timeline with your business posts. So that's something that I would like to suggest for folks as well. And again, you're just putting all that yoga goodness out there, and you're not, you know, you're not bombarding your regular personal connections with all of that business info.
All right, great advice, Carla. That's always good. I always love to get the marketing side of things because I need so much help with it often. So really great advice. So let's move on to today's takeaway segment. Today's takeaway is one of reflection. So set aside some time this week, maybe a half hour or so, to sit and reflect on your teaching business. You know, are you treating yourself like a business, or are you treating it as just a hobby? Are you willing to put in the extra time to make sure your legal and marketing ducks are in a row to really convert this passion into a lucrative business? Think about this. Is your hobby putting you in harm's way? If it's just a hobby for you, is it worth the legal risk of keeping it as your hobby? Again, we do not produce this show to scare you, but to give you advice and insights so that you're running a successful yoga business as a teacher or studio owner. Because no matter what side of the fence you're sitting on, these are like really good issues you need to think about and address them. Mm-hmm.
So on our next episode, we are going to be talking about all the things you need to do when you want to teach online. So we will be giving you great tips and insights about things you have to think about when you are getting ready to teach yoga online. Please feel free. If you have any show ideas or maybe questions about today's show, reach out to us via email at yogabizstudio@gmail.com. or the social networks of Google+, Facebook, and Twitter at Yoga Biz Studio. We want to remind you that there are 2 yoga events coming up in the fall in the Chester County area. Coincidentally, both events are being held at Westchester University, so that makes it easy to remember. The first is offered by our friends at Philly Area Yoga. The event is called Namaste, and Namaste will be held, as I said, Westchester University on Sunday, October 19th. Currently, there are over 16 presenters and workshops that are booked throughout the day. It's going to be a great day of yoga. There's a lot of vendors in our wellness marketplace. So come on out. You can find more information at namastephilly.com. Secondly, and because I know sometimes she doesn't want to toot her own horn, Miss Keeley is offering what is called the Yogis Business Retreat. That will be held on Saturday and Sunday, November 1st and 2nd, again, at Westchester University. It is a 2-day event. and chock full of presenters and sessions on running a thriving business, marketing, all kinds of things for the yoga business owner. So you can find more information about the Yogis Business Retreat by visiting Keeley's website at ziliving.com, ziliving.com.
Thanks, Carla, and thank you to our audience for joining us today. Our Yoga Biz show is brought to you weekly by me, Keeley Mitchell of Z Living, and Carla Wilson of Wilson Media Services. Until next week, namaste.
Namaste, everyone.